focus on kind of the bigger picture of content, building things that you own, showing up, being intentional.
I'm Maud Leger, and this is the Realtors Conspiracy Podcast, where we crack the code to real estate success. Learn from top realtors, entrepreneurs, and innovators about how to grow your business as we discuss real estate success stories, mindset, processes, motivations, and the key to their success. Check out our podcast episodes every Monday to crack the code to success for your real estate business. This week, I'm speaking with speaker, author, and social media strategist Katie Lenz. Her academy focuses on helping realtors get smart with social media and leverage it for their business. Katie shares some awesome tips and ideas on being intentional with social media, creating content, and repurposing it. And listen up, she advises every realtor out there to stop the random acts of social media. So let's get to my chat with Katie. Hi, Katie. Thanks for joining us today. And let's jump right in and tell us, how can realtors stay on top of their game?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. Our specialty is really in helping agents and brokers get smarter about social media. So I'm probably a little biased when it comes to, agents staying on top of their game. I think social media is a huge, huge opportunity. I know it's not necessarily the new shiny object. It's been around for quite some time, but social media is still such a great opportunity for realtors to connect with their past clients, their current clients, to expand their sphere. And when done right, I think it's a really great opportunity to attract business versus chasing leads. So lots of opportunities. I'm excited. Maybe we can chat more about it today.
Yeah, that's exciting. So how do you support realtors? What do you offer, or how do you help them out?
Sure. So we've been working in the real estate industry for, about a decade now. And really our passion is just to help agents and brokers get smarter about social media. We don't really feel like social media is the silver bullet. It's not the end all and be all, but when done right, it can make a really big difference in their business. And so about 5 years ago, we developed our Get Social Smart Academy, which is a membership site. And once agents and brokers become members, they can sign up monthly or yearly. They have access to all of our training and coaching and courses. And we just discovered long ago that, if an agent really wants to figure out a strategic plan with social media, a lot of times they need more than just a quick video or a quick webinar. It's like anytime you want to learn something, it takes a little bit of time. So it's really been exciting to see our academy grow, and we've got hundreds and thousands of members all across the states and the world, and it's just awesome. It's so much fun to be able to serve more people that way. So it's a lot of fun.
I love it. How do you work with agents to help them with their strategic plan for social media?
So most of what we do is online, which is great. Obviously just virtual these days is how a lot of folks are working. And so we kind of think about it in a few different ways. I really believe in the idea of being intentional. I think a lot of folks, when it comes to especially social media, there's just a lot of randomness, and I always say, stop the random acts of social media.
I love it.
So, I think being intentional about where you want to be. I don't think you have to be everywhere. I think, picking a couple platforms that you enjoy being on and that your clients or your prospects are on. So I think that's probably the first thing. And then the second big thing is really to help agents and brokers integrate social media and content creation just into their schedule.
Yeah.
I find that if it's not on the calendar, it's probably not going to happen. So, getting just even if it's time blocking 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week or whatever works for the agent, just getting that into their schedule. And then I would also say just, making a point of not just posting content for the sake of content, but showing up and engaging with people.
Yeah.
Real estate's a relationship business. So making sure we take time to do that is important.
Yeah, I totally get that. What advice would you give realtors who want to grow their business?
Well, I think social media and content is a great opportunity to grow their business. As much as I do like social media is a rented ground.
Yeah.
So we don't own it. And so one way that agents and brokers can really expand their reach and their business is through really consistently creating content. And YouTube is a great example of that. YouTube is the number two search engine in the world. It's owned by Google. And as agents start to kind of really think about their video content, I know a lot of folks put out listings on videos, which is great, but if agents can also start to think about putting out informative educational content,
Yeah.
things like, who pays for what, or what does it feel like to move to this city, or what are the common questions I get asked all the time. What we found is that the agents and brokers who put out that content consistently, especially YouTube, but also platforms like Instagram or Facebook, it's a really great way to build that know, like, and trust factor,
Mm-hmm.
and to really, showcase your expertise in your market. It's a little bit of the long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But when done right, it can be really a powerful thing. And the reality is your content doesn't just have to live on YouTube. If you're active over on Instagram, you could do an Instagram story about it. You could share it over on Facebook. You could email that out to your database. And so I would say that's another big thing we talk about too, is creating content that helps to attract business, but also don't reinvent the wheel. If you can repurpose a lot of your content, turn it into a podcast like we're doing here. There's lots of opportunities.
Very cool. Tell us more about like content. Like, do you help agents? Like, a lot of times they would say, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to
Yeah.
post. And how do you help them with that?
Yeah, that's a really common concern or question. And so one of the things I encourage agents to do is to look at their life as content. As you're out and about, as you are on the phone, answering questions, as you're, receiving emails from clients, prospects, you're at your kid's soccer game and the parent next to you says, "Oh, you're in real estate," and you start talking about the market.
How's the market?
As things, yeah, exactly. As things start to pop up, even non business things, you watch a show on Netflix, or see a beautiful sunset. Like, as you start to kind of just really look at your life as content, you'll discover that there's lots and lots of ideas. And I often will encourage agents and brokers to think about the last few clients or prospects they worked with. They might even take out a piece of paper and just make a list of maybe like the last 5 or 10 people they've had conversations with about real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
then write down, like, what were those conversations? What were their concerns or questions? And it's often the topics that come up where we think to ourselves, oh my gosh, if I get asked that one more time, that's a great piece of content right there.
Yes. And then repurpose it, like you said, website, newsletter. I love it. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you can start to think about common questions that are kind of evergreen or timeless.
Mm.
I think a lot of agents do really well putting out very timely information. So they're doing posts about the market and what's happening right now with their listings and open houses. But it's also really helpful if you can think about, what are things that we just get asked all the time? Why should I pay for a stager? How to find a lender? Or, I don't know if it's a good time to buy. I'm a renter right now. Like, just kind of, questions people get asked all the time.
Yeah,
That type of timeless content. With the great news is it can get shared today, but it could get shared again in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and you can repurpose that.
true. Nice. And then you talked about listings. So how can agents leverage their listings or post about their listings, get the maximum return out of their each listing, I guess?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple basic things that are important. Great photography is still so important. A picture's worth 1,000 words. And so, depending on an agent's budget, I always think one of the best things that they can spend money on is professional photography, because those pictures are going to go everywhere, from their website to their broker's website to any other, third-party platform that their listings might be syndicated to. But then I think in addition to that, our clients are just a lot savvier than I think they were 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah,
I think 5 or 10 years ago, an agent could say, "Oh yeah, your listing is going to be all over social media, or it's going to be posted to Facebook," and I think a lot of people would be like, "Okay, that's great." But now I think we evolved to, well, what does that look like? Like, is there going to be advertising? Are you going to do a Facebook Live? Are we going to do a virtual open house? Are we, like, I think there's more questions about what that looks like. So I think it's important for an agent to kind of have a checklist to show, hey, these are the 10 things we're going to do, or 20 things, or whatever it might be, on those platforms, from when it's coming on the market. If you're, depending on your market area, some people are allowed to do coming soon. It's not allowed in some areas, but if you're allowed to do any kind of coming soon marketing, and then what does it look like the first 24, 48 hours when it's on, MLS or open to the public? And then what does the first maybe broker's open house look like? And Just kind of thinking about it holistically from beginning to end. And so I think images are important. I also think video is super, super important. And it doesn't have to be high end, expensive, fancy video. We all have these great phones, that we don't always use for phones, but they're great, just even creating, a quick 15 or 20-second video.
Intro them.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of music, maybe. Like it doesn't have to be super complicated. I think, in this day and age, things move really quick. And so leveraging tools like Instagram stories or even Instagram reels, content that's pretty quick and fun and fast moving. The goal is for them to contact you, right? We don't have to sell the listing through a whole video. It's just give them enough information where people go, that's really interesting. Where is that? What neighborhood is that? How much is that? And so keeping that curiosity, I think, is key.
Yeah, I love it. When you talk about not putting random content out there, how do you help agent see the return, like track or see the return on what they're doing?
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think anybody who's been in any marketing knows that, it's like, let's how, and there's certain things you can certainly do to track, like if you're running ads or even not, even if you're not running ads, a lot of times you can track your links to see how many clicks are we getting. I think what really helps with analytics is not just looking at like post by post, but getting yourself into a routine. So I like to look at our analytics typically once a quarter because
Okay.
I find that if I just look at it week by week, it doesn't really tell the whole story,
Yeah, I don't
So
see.
if you can set aside, I just put in our calendar, it's like once a quarter, it's like, well, what happened? And I personally like to pull up a lot of the free analytics, like Facebook analytics are available if you use Business Suite, business.facebook.com. You can pull up your Instagram analytics that way also, especially if you have a business account with Instagram. If you have YouTube, there's free YouTube analytics, and it's really kind of fascinating to sort of pull those up. And sometimes I go a little old school. I actually print some of them up because it's just nice to be able to like lay them all out and be like, well, how did things work? What type of post did get a high level of engagement? Oh, this one did well on YouTube, but it kind of flopped on Facebook. Like, and so it's interesting to kind of to kind of map that out. I think you have to also be kind of careful with analytics because I don't think they always tell the whole story. I don't think just because you've got 40% more followers, like that's great, but I think it's more about quality versus quantity. So, and there's just a lot of holistic things that you can't always track. A lot of times people will reach out on social media, but it's not because of that one post. It's because they've seen you for 6 months and they've been binge watching, your content and whatever it might be. So I think it's good to track. I think it's good to look at your analytics, but I also think that there's, like I said, just some things that holistically happen that we can't always wrap our arms around. We'd like to, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. That's always a feeling too. Like, how do you feel you're doing and what do people say to you,
yeah.
right? Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you starting to, when you're out and about? I was talking to an agent who's in our academy, and she was saying, it's amazing how after she's been in our academy about a year or so, how now she's out and about. She's at the grocery store and she'll run into people, and they're like, how do I know you? I feel like I've seen you, and she knows she doesn't know them, but they recognize her because of her video content, because of what she's doing on Facebook or YouTube, and so if you're it takes time. It takes time to kind of become known. And I
Yeah,
think that's a lot of people sort of they don't see results right away. And so then they're like, it's not working, but you just got to stick with it.
true. Sticking with it. I totally agree. I hear that all the time. Oh, I tried, it didn't work.
Yeah. And there's some, like I said in the beginning, there's so much opportunity. I know social media is not a new, it's not the new shiny object, but it's so few people are doing what we're doing on a regular, consistent basis. People will get motivated. Agents will go to a conference or they'll listen to a webinar and they'll, create a Facebook Live or they'll jump on Instagram, and then they get busy. And so it goes back to what I said earlier. You got to get yourself into a routine. You've got to, time block some of these things, get it on your schedule. That way you don't have these sort of peaks and valleys in
Yeah,
your business.
true. How do you help Realtor keep innovating or coming up with new ideas? Like, what's your process there?
Oh, I think there's a few things. I think, like I said earlier, I think part of it is content and always thinking about like what's the most relevant, right? What are your clients, what are your prospects asking right now? And it's always this balance of like, thinking about what is timely and what happens time and time again, but also staying current, So a year and a half ago when the world kind of shut down, I know we pivoted a lot with our content. We started teaching things like how to do a virtual open house, how to work with clients when you can't go in their house, like, and, people were asking me, I was like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out, And so I think having a plan, but also being nimble enough and being aware of what's going on in the world. And, beyond the pandemic, there's a lot happening in our world. There's a lot of kind of big, heavy stuff. So just, recognizing that. And, I think sometimes I think it's okay to plan stuff, but I think we also want to make sure that what we're posting out there is relevant. And sometimes it's okay to pause social media a little bit and say, you know what, maybe I need a little bit of a break, or maybe this post isn't appropriate to post today. I'm going to wait a couple days, so I think that there's that,
Yeah.
kind of thoughtfulness that I think is important. And the other thing I'll just mention with your question real quick is I think the other thing that's really powerful is taking the online offline.
Mm.
I think especially in this day and age, like relationships I think are more important than ever before. So with Facebook, if you see that, someone in your kind of sphere is going through something, you could be one of the, 50 people that writes on their wall or leaves them a comment, or maybe you're one of the only people that text them or send them a private message on Facebook Messenger. So just, I think, being aware and connecting with people, I think is important.
Nice. What are three key action every realtor should be doing, no matter what?
Well, you guys are good questions. I love it. Three key actions. Wow. Well, again, I guess just to bring it back to social media, since that's our
Yeah.
wheelhouse. I would say, like I said, number one, earlier, being intentional. I definitely, if you, for your listeners, if they haven't written down the stop the random acts of social media, I would write that down. I think that's first and foremost. And to me, being intentional means, when you open up Facebook, don't just kind of get sucked into the scroll. It's really easy. I was looking at my phone the other day. You can look at your screen time of how much time you spent.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
like, holy cow, it's just so easy to get sucked in. So be intentional, be purposeful. The second thing I would say is don't outsource it. Don't hand off your social media completely to somebody else. There's nothing wrong with having an assistant. There's nothing wrong with having a marketing person or a great video editor on your team, but real estate's a relationship business, and it's kind of like the ultimate dinner party. I mean, imagine having a dinner party with your 10 most important clients, but instead of you being there, you hand it off to your assistant. So we've got to show up. I think that's important. And then the third thing, as I said earlier, really focus on, are there some assets that you can build that go with you no matter what? Right. So videos I mentioned earlier, obviously those can go on YouTube, that they can also go on Facebook or Instagram, but any other type of long form content, podcast content is great, right? Like what we're doing right here. You can take this and slice and dice it and repurpose it, but it's your content. Same thing with building an email list. It's not quite social media, but it's your list, your database, like regardless of where you go. So I would say, you know, try not to get too caught up in like, oh, what's the new app? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Is it, things will be here today and they might be, they might disappear at some point.
Yeah.
We've seen that with other apps. So focus on kind of the bigger picture of content, building things that you own,
Yeah.
showing up, being intentional. That's what I think, are some of the important places for an agent to be.
Key. Awesome. I love it. And then what about TikTok? You mentioned it. What do you feel about TikTok? Where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I think it's a super fun platform. I mean, I am on it, although I haven't created anything. I'm just a little bit of a lurker. I think I probably signed up like a lot of people did during the pandemic because it's entertaining, right? It's
Yeah.
super fun and entertaining. And I think what we can learn from TikTok is that, as especially as someone who's using social media for business, it's a great opportunity to create a little bit of content that is fun, that is entertaining, that's quick. There's still a place for long form content. A lot of our podcasts are 30 or 40 minutes. This interview we're doing, this is a longer piece of content. There's always going to be a place for that. But I also think that what TikTok has shown us is that there's an opportunity for quick, fun, playful content. And you don't have to be like the dancing realtor, you don't have to do that. But I think there's a lot of opportunities. And, one of the reasons why I am not super active on TikTok is I just found personally that a lot of my audience is not super active on TikTok. So it goes back to what I said earlier, like, where are your people at? And so, however, a lot of my people are on Instagram. And so we create a lot of Reels content, which is basically almost the same thing as TikTok. It's quick 30 to 60-second videos, music, words on the screen, things like that. And right now, because Instagram Reels is fairly new, it's getting a lot of traction. I could post a video on Reels and get a few thousand views really quickly, whereas it doesn't happen that fast on YouTube typically, right? Or Facebook. So,
Sure.
it's definitely a big opportunity. And as I said earlier, if you're as an agent, already creating some kind of longer form content, Reels is one more great place to take out maybe a 30-second clip
Yeah.
and just reshare that over on Reels. You can take out a 30-second clip and say, hey, here's a 30-second clip. If you'd like to see the full video, message me below or send me a message. So
Nice.
yeah, lots of opportunity.
Very cool. Thank you. What about questions that you get? What would be like the most recurring questions that agents ask you?
I still get a lot of questions about Facebook. I mean, for years, probably my most asked question is around Facebook personal profiles and business pages. I still get asked that quite a bit. So it's kind of an oldie but goodie. A lot of people are kind of not sure if they should have both, or really not sure how valuable both of them are, because a business page doesn't get a whole lot of traction. People usually have more people that they're connected to on their personal profile. So my advice is that I think you do need both. I think there's the personal and business piece of it. Your personal profile shouldn't be all business, your name shouldn't be, John Smith, realtor. Your last name is not realtor. So your personal profile should be you.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like the 80-20 rule, 80% personal, 20% business. Your business page, though, should be all business. So it's your listings, your open houses, video content we're talking about, podcast content, whatever it might be. But there's nothing wrong from time to time sharing some of that content from your business page over to your personal profile.
that's your 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what is really resonating right now on Facebook business pages is original content.
Nice.
So content like this, video content, Facebook Live content, content that's in your voice, that has your opinion, that has your personality. And to be honest with you, a lot of times I go to an agent or broker's Facebook business page, and it doesn't matter if they're in California or New York or wherever. A lot of times I see the exact same thing, right? I see listings and open houses. I see a link to some like generic article about like how to get your home ready for the
That is
for the fall or
fun.
something. Yeah, it's like this very like vanilla. There's sort of this sea of sameness,
Mhm.
right? And you asked earlier about standing out, and I would just kind of give a call to action to anyone listening, like stand out. There is a sea of sameness out there, and as an example, the next time a holiday rolls around, you're going to kind of see the same thing from every realtor. It's like a stock photo with
Yeah,
like the logo in the corner, right? And so video and original content allows people to kind of break out of their shell a little bit. And you may not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay, right? There's enough business for everybody. So stand out in a sea of sameness. That's my that's my advice right there.
absolutely. Very cool. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to share with realtors, tips and advice that they should know about?
I think I know I've said this probably 2 or 3 times, but again, it really goes back to having a plan, being intentional. We do have a really great free resource on our website. I'm happy to share that if
Yeah.
that's okay with you, with your listeners. You mentioned content earlier, and people really struggle a lot of times with what to post, like what to say, and how do we do this where it doesn't take all day long. And so we created a while ago a content grid where basically it's a spreadsheet with about 30 content ideas, where an agent can print it up, and when they're sitting down a few times a week to post content or create content, they've got some ideas right in front of them. So folks can just go to our website, katielance.com, and they'll see it on there. I think it's katielance.com/content grid, and they'll see it on there. Put their name and email in, and we'll send it to you. But just in the context of what we're talking about today, I think it would just help a lot of folks to get more organized, get more intentional when it comes to their content. So
I I love
check it
it.
out.
We'll share it in the link for sure. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been an honor talking to you. I'm super grateful for your time today and for all the tips you share. Like, there's a lot here.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. I just would encourage anyone to reach out. I'm happy to connect. obviously active on social, so feel free to find me and say, hey, I listened to I listened to you on this podcast. I would absolutely love to connect with your audience. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks for joining. Check out Katie's book at #GetSocialSmart and subscribe to our podcast, Realtors Conspiracy, today.